So, time to talk about a series which content matter will more than likely get this video not recognized by the YouTube algorithm, which revolves around 5 missing kids, how it drives an entire series, how it motivates a man to go on a tinge to go on a slaughter, and how overall, somehow, it's never the same 5 missing kids. Yet it is, but it isn't. But it is, but it isn't. Welcome to the complicated lore of the 5 missing kids of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And oh my god, is this going to be a ride and a half. Now, to get one thing clear, I say it is and isn't the same group of kids at the same time because while we always call them the 5 missing kids, truth be told, there needs to be other missing kids at different points in the series in order for all these events to make sense. So, while technically this video is only about the 5 missing kids of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and while I've also done a video on this already, reality is not everybody wants to sit around and watch an extensive gameplay video, so welcome to the audio log, so to speak. Yeah, and I literally needed to pull up a list to confirm this because I really wasn't sure, even though I have notes for this. So, to highlight this problem even further, the chronological timeline is FNAF 4, FNAF 2, Sister Location, the original game, 3, Pizzeria Simulator, then Help Wanted, then Security Breach, then Ruin, then Help Wanted 2, and then whatever games we get after that. That is the current timeline for all this. So now I hope you fully understand why there needs to be more than 5 missing kids for this entire timeline to work. Because just like Red... But to be clear, I'm not one of those nutjobs who's gonna go off and say, there's 10 missing kids, or there's 15 missing kids, or there's 5 missing kids for each and every game, which are all things people think and say on the series, even though the only hints we've gotten to any extra missing kids are in 4, Sister Location, and Pizzeria Simulator. In literally every other game, it's never been anything other than the 5 missing kids. So, considering we only have 3 extra games other than 1 and 2, which, by the way, 1 and 2 is only the 5 missing kids, please don't insist that there are 5 more kids just because we're in the second game. No, it's only ever 5 plus a few more, like 3 at the most. Because while yes, it is always gonna have to be more kids than 5, reality is, once you reach a certain number, there's a certain thing called you get caught doing a crime. And technically Afton already got caught. But yes, this is genuinely where I have to stop and be the, hey guys, there's such a thing as called logical storytelling still. Because despite the fact we're talking about ghosts, hauntings, cursed animatronics that want to stuff you in suits, a man who's obsessed with studying how souls work, this still takes place in our real world, and there's still such a thing as, after doing so much crime, you're guaranteed to get caught. And, yeah. If you're familiar with the channel, I don't need to go any further. So yes, there are both in-game reasons and logical storytelling reasons and real-life reasons as to why it's just 7 or 8-ish kids that went missing. But now that we have all that out of the way, which we're probably at the 8-minute mark by now, just getting all this prerequisite stuff out of the way, let's get into the actual lore of these people, shall we? Now, the first set of missing kids, or 1 or 2 kids, really, if we're being honest here, actually happened sometime before FNAF 4, because we get cutscenes with Crying Child, where Crying Child is talking to people who have gone to Fazbear's restaurant and all that shit, and the kids in these cutscenes, swear to God, there are rumors of missing kids already. And while we don't get any really big hints on who these missing kids are, we know it happened. But I have a slight theory, and here's where we have a slight problem here, because this flies in the face of what is basically confirmed lore at this point. Now, my theory is these kids who went missing before the events of FNAF 4, which FNAF 4, by the way, is the prequel to everything else in the series. Yikes. But anyway, these kids are actually the kids that went missing during FNAF 5, or Sister Location. Because that whole game is set to explain the fact that Afton is kidnapping kids to figure out how souls work. That's literally the whole point of FNAF 5. That and revealing Ennard, let's be honest here. So with that being said, and knowing the whole reason behind FNAF 5, what's really the big problem with this theory? Well, FNAF 5 technically happens after FNAF 4, and even if FNAF 5 did happen before FNAF 4, there's a little problem of we know no one else other than night guards has died at the location, which is a really big problem here. You kinda need confirmation of missing kids for all this to work. And there's also the big problem of, well, it closed due to leaks. Literally, closed due to gas leaks. The sister location, you know, Circus Baby's Pizza, it never opened. It never took off. They never sent any animatronics out. So, even though I have my own theory on how this happened, and at the end of the day, FNAF lore boils down to nothing but theories we beg for Scott Coffin to confirm for us, yeah, I really genuinely have nothing here. We know there are kids that went missing before FNAF 4. We know there are kids that went missing in between FNAF 4 and 5, technically. We don't know what really happened to them. Everyone, including me, wants to believe in FNAF 5, and we have our rumors and theories surrounding it to justify it. But what confirmed lore we have doesn't justify it, nor confirm it. So this is unfortunately one of the cases where if we're gonna want missing kids for FNAF 5 sister location, Circus Baby's Pizza, there's gonna need to be a retcon, because confirmed lore literally is stopping us from placing these missing kids, like these two or three extra kids, anywhere in the spectrum. So, yikes, that's a problem, isn't it? Okay, so now that we covered where the extra 2 to 3 kids come from, finally we are here. The core 5. The ones that started it all. Not really, as we already covered. And because I'm gonna have a few people debating me on what are their actual names, here you go. This is what Google swears to God their names are. Gabriel, Jeremy, Susie, Fritz, and Cassidy. You see that? It's highlighted there. If I have one person swear to God Jeremy isn't Jeremy because Jeremy Fitzgerald exists, I'm gonna lose my mind. Listen, people, there doesn't need to be a name change just because there are 2 people with the same name. Okay? I get this rant is out of left field, but I've literally scrolled through posts where I've heard people swear to God that there needs to be a name change to Jeremy, or that Jeremy isn't actually Jeremy because Jeremy Fitzgerald exists and Jeremy Fitzgerald is the Bite of 83 victim. So why the hell would Scott Coffin name another person Jeremy just to have him die and get stuffed into Bonnie? And at that point, all I gotta tell you is, I don't know. That's just how the story is written. I'm sorry this has a random rant in it, but if I have another stupid person swear to God that Jeremy isn't Jeremy, I'm gonna shove a Jeremy up your fucking ass. Now, this is probably where you're beginning to wonder, however, what's the role in all these kids? Surely they did something, right? Like, surely there's some grand storytelling reason as to why these specific 5 kids got brutalized, beat up by a yellow bunny suit wearing motherfucker, and yeah, there's no reason whatsoever. They're literally just 5 random victims. Are you happy? I hope you're happy. This is what you asked for, after all. Yeah, this is generally where in a lot of FNAF lore videos we have to go with fan theories. This is generally why in a lot of FNAF lore videos in general, people want to connect all this to something. I've seen people swear to God, these were the 5 kids who used to bully little Evan Afton, little crying child. No. No. Some of these kids are younger than crying child would have been. How would they have even been there? What in the fuck? Yeah, I'm sorry for the excessive swearing and cussing and getting angry during this video. This is why I just wanted to do this video. I never wanted to make this video because I knew when it came time to talk about this, as with a lot of FNAF lore, when you take it outside of short videos, it gets frustrating. Because while put together, it's all a great story, individually, it really does fall apart on its own. As much as the 5 missing kids are a driving force in the series, they practically serve no point other than to get slaughtered, haunt the animatronics, and then kick off the rest of the series from there. And this problem really only comes in the fact of, well, they were never meant to be anything more than a rumor, a myth, a legend, a what if, a possibility. We weren't even supposed to have names for these people initially. When you really look back at it, FNAF 1 was never meant to be anything more than just a simple flash game. And then it grew into this. It grew into this. We're here talking about its lore. This thing has movies behind it. And while the movies are definitely doing a very good job, well, movie and the books, I'm going to say movie and the books, we don't have the second film yet. So while other media has done a, hello Leonard, and while other media has done a really good job of expanding on the lore, the problem is when we're talking about the core games like I'm trying to do and make sure we have the whole FNAF for Dummies shit, we don't have much to talk about. We genuinely don't. And I know all that's ironic because you're so many minutes, maybe hours, depending on how long the grand compilation video is. Keep in mind, this is going in a video that's going to be several hours long, containing this shit, all my shorts, and then all my sitting down talking about FNAF videos, at least up to a certain point, at least until I feel like we have all the lore accurately covered. But it really angers me that I can't talk about more of it because there's only so much to go over. And when you're trying to go over the important parts, it really sucks that the important parts is, hey, there were 3 random kids we'll never know about, and the 5 kids we do know about really only serve the purpose of haunting suits and almost have no characterization other than that. Now, on the bright side, I can tell you about where each child ended up, because let me tell you, during FNAF 2, we have this lovely thing called Save the Children, which is essentially the program made in the toy animatronics to, well, save the children. And the reason why I do it like the reason why I do it like that is because that's basically how it is in the game. It's literally a giant, hurts your ears if you have the volume up too loud, robotic voice, not too dissimilar from the one we use in my series, where it just goes, "Hey, buddy, I need your attention." And this is how we learn that children have died. I'm not fucking with you. So that happened, and then we get phone call dialogue. Phone call dialogue. Now, I gotta drop the act a little bit. While I'm obviously being a smartass for comedic purposes, this has always been the storytelling of FNAF, okay? I'm not saying that to be mean, I'm not saying that to be a dickhead. I just find it funny we get this big reveal that people are going missing and that people are dying because of Save the Children and because of, hey, so we had an incident with a guy in a piss-stained bunny suit. Gabriel overall ended up stuffed in Freddy. Jeremy ended up in Bonnie. Susie ended up in Chica. Fritz in Foxy. And Cassidy is stuffed alongside Crying Child into Golden Freddy. which was originally just Fredbear at one point. And, oh boy, this is the part that hurts. So, you know how the suits they were stuffed into are the withered animatronics in FNAF 2. And because FNAF 2 takes place before FNAF 1, you know, the withered animatronics eventually become the normal animatronics we see in that game. And supposedly these events happened during FNAF 2. However, during all 5 nights, the withered animatronics always act up. This leads us to what I call the second great problem with the 5 missing kids. Not just the fact it's hard to place where the 5 missing kids died, not just the fact that there are more than 5 kids technically. If they die during FNAF 2, why do the withered animatronics always attack us? Now, I know the obvious answer is gameplay. Thank God we have a logical reason. It all comes down to gameplay. The game would be boring if you didn't have things to go up against. That's true with every video game. So, this is where we run into the problem of video game mechanics interfering with how lore works. And overall, there's not a whole lot you can really do to fix that problem. A game needs to operate, a game needs to work, and considering FNAF 2 alongside FNAF 1 were just meant to be flash games for fun, and only were meant to have little snippets of lore, I'm willing to say okay, fine. But this has been a contingency problem in the FNAF fanverse forever. And let me tell you, people have made whole series. I kid you not. It's not FNAF VHS. FNAF VHS is not the one I'm thinking about. If I can find the series, I'll post it in the description or edit it in, but I probably won't find it. But I literally remember watching a whole series that was made by a fan that was animated and everything, and its only purpose was to explain where all the kids went, because there was such little explanation on how all this works and happens in the core series. And really the only thing we know is where they ended up and which suits they specifically haunt. That's it. However, there is a major thing they do serve to do, and that unfortunately doesn't happen until FNAF 3. Despite all the great blunders in storytelling, this is truly where I would say the 5 missing kids became popular. Because in FNAF 3, and during the events of FNAF 1, because FNAF 3 takes place after FNAF 1, but it also has events from FNAF 1 that we don't see during FNAF 1. So that's awesome. And by the way, this is how we figured out the whole franchise. Yeah, this is how we put the whole franchise's lore together, by the way. We would literally have to hop and skip between games for shits and giggles just to figure out lore. Yay. In the third game, which technically takes place during the first game, well, this part anyway, William Afton, to get Remnant and figure out what Remnant is and how souls work and all that happy jazz, dismantles the haunted suits and gets his Remnant. But at some point he goes back to get more, and stuck in my own trap, lungs collapse as my bones are cracked. Don't you know I always come back? Man, that was really cringe, and I probably shouldn't put that in the video, but I probably will, knowing my ass. But yeah, this is when the man behind the slaughter truly becomes the man behind the slaughter, and he becomes Springtrap, because the 5 missing kids say, "Uno reverse card, buddy," and he is stuck inside Spring Bonnie that lovely piss-stained bunny suit for the rest of his life. And this is probably the moment in the series that puts the 5 missing kids into fame and fortune, because while they've always been an interesting subject matter throughout the whole series, we literally see all 5 of them collectively off Afton, which we all love. We all love seeing Afton getting off, let's face it. We love it. We love ourselves a good old spring lock failure, let's face it. You know you love it. But before this video gets to 20 minutes long, even though I think it already is 20 minutes long, I think that's really all the lore we have. Because while they technically show up again during Pizzeria Simulator, the only point of Pizzeria Simulator is putting their souls to rest. There's not really much a point of going over what they do, because, well, the only person at that point who is doing anything really is Cassidy, and we already know that Cassidy holds William Afton hostage, keeps him in hell for a little bit supposedly, or in some sort of mock afterlife, and then Afton eventually escapes, and then we see him as Glitch trapped through the rest of the series. And as that weird, somehow he's back in Springtrap burnt corpse that we see, but that's neither here nor there. There's not really a whole lot to go over after 3, and while I do want to mention obviously what I just mentioned, there's not really a whole lot to go over, because after that point in time, well, once we get to Security Breach, Ruin, Help Wanted, and all those games, I know I said those out of order, it's 5 different missing kids, and it's no longer the 5 missing kids plus some that started the series, because by this point in time, their souls have been put to rest, and they're no longer vital to the core story. The story at that point has evolved past the 5 missing kids. There's no really any big point in having them in the series anymore. And while they are vital for getting us to point A to B and getting us to Security Breach, Ruin, and all that, it's kind of a shame that their story is over, considering they never got much of a story in the games in the first place. And while we were able to squeeze a 20-some minute video out talking about the lore of the 5 missing kids, most of the lore was me explaining how there isn't much lore, and you have to go to extended options and extended media if you want to see truly what there is in terms of a story for them, and that's kind of shameful. And I'm glad we have the movies now that are happening that are going to fix all that, and we're going to get more of a story. And honestly, I would probably be better off just explaining the movie verse at this point, but that's really not the point of FNAF. You're meant to look at everything as a whole, take it all in, fit it in the best you can, and figure out how it happens. But if you're like me and you really only want to go over confirmed what has and what has not happened, and you really want nothing more than the raw details, well, you get videos like this where people like me have to explain where there's not really much details, and it makes putting a series like FNAF for Dummies difficult. But then again, considering everything we have up until this point, and considering we have a few more topics left to go over, it's probably going to be a pretty good compilation by the end of the day. Hopefully. I have been Johnny Von Duke. I hope you enjoyed this entry. And, well, see you all next time, I guess. Don't get slaughtered.